Hey guys, so as promised for the second half of the week, we are doing two-step inequalities. Just to review, we are going to go back over just inequality stuff. Oops, man, I meant to make one of those. Anyway, so when writing an inequality from a graph, I'm going to start by just making an X because why not? Doesn't really matter what letter you use. And the boundary is -2. Since all of my numbers are above or bigger than -2, I'm going to use the greater than symbol. Since this is an open circle, it means that -2 is not included, so there is no line underneath. For this one, same thing, I'm just going to use an X. My boundary is at 1 and everything is less than. So I'm going to use the less than symbol. It is open, so it does not get a line under it. But let's just say if this circle was colored in, you would put a line there for or equal to, because it would mean the one is included in the solution set. Anyway. Okay. So, reminder of one-step inequalities. Inequalities are pretty much the same as solving just any old regular equation. The only difference is you have to make sure you pay attention to which direction the sign is going in. So I would add 17 to both sides, just like we used to do when we solved. And I get that k is less than or equal to 0. So I put a dot at 0. It's colored in since it is or equal to. And the k's are all smaller. So if you can remember, like the mouth eats the bigger part, all my k's are going to be smaller than 0. So I'm going to go to the left on the number line. Ta-da. All right. So this one I chose specifically because there is one thing that you have to remember when solving inequalities, and that is if you multiply or divide by a negative number when solving, you have to change direction of the sign. So I'm going to divide by a negative, which means that my sign changes direction. So n is less than -7. That does not apply just for multiplying and dividing. It is only when you multiply or divide by a negative. So because there's no line under it, I'm going to put an open circle at -7. And since all of the ends are smaller, I'm going to go to the left. Oh, I like coloring in the arrows. Anyway. Cool. So this week we are doing two-step inequalities, which just means we have to be reminded of some of the solving strategies for these types of equations. If you have a big fraction like this, then you are going to want to get rid of the fraction first. Just like with solving, so remember that a fraction bar is essentially a division symbol. So if to do the opposite of divided by 8, I'm just going to multiply both sides by 8. Boom. So I have -9 plus n is greater than or equal to 8. Then I just need to add 9 to both sides. So I get n is greater than or equal to 17, which means when I graph it, closed circle on 17 because there is a line it is or equal to. And since the ends are bigger, I go to the right. You do not have to color in the arrow. I just feel like doing that. Anyway. Moving on. With one like this. I'm going to rewrite it under the graph so that I actually have some room. So with this one, I will want to get rid of the parentheses first by distributing. There's more than one way to solve, but that's how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to multiply everything inside the parentheses by negative 5. So I get negative 5n minus 15. Just multiply those two things by negative 5. Then I'm going to start solving. So I'm going to get rid of the minus 15 first. General rule of thumb is when you're solving, you start with whatever's further away from the variable. The reason is because we go in reverse order of operations because solving is doing everything backwards. So the opposite of subtracting 15 is adding 15. So I'm going to do that to both sides to keep my inequality balanced. And I will get negative 60 is greater than negative 5n. So now I need to divide, and since I'm dividing by a negative, don't forget that the sign changes direction. So this side becomes positive 12. This sign flips over, and the negative 5s cancel out, and now I'm just left with n. So that means that I put an open circle at 12 because it is not equal to. And since n's are bigger than 12, I go to the right. I only have one more to show you. With this one, it's a little fraction, so you don't want to start with that. That's an ugly n. I am actually going to start by getting rid of the 7. So I get rid of that by adding 7 to both sides. So I get n over 2 equals 7. Then I want to get rid of the 2. And since that means n divided by 2, I get rid of 2 by multiplying both sides by 2. So that these cancel out. So I end up with n. Oops, I put equals. Look at me. Being silly. N is greater than or equal to 14. So I'm going to put a closed circle at 14. And since all the n's are bigger than 14, I'm going to go with my arrow to the right. And I'm done. So anyway, the homework is just some practice of stuff like this. I will see you guys in the live meet where I'll go over some problems just like this. And yeah, there you go.